So Muizu is serious about India. He wants New Delhi out of the Maldives. But here's the bigger problem. It's not just Malé. Most South Asian capitals seem to be having a rethink, like Nepal and Sri Lanka. Now, obviously, this raises questions like, why is it happening? What will be the impact? And what can India do to fix it? Let's understand the basics first. This is what South Asia looks like. Look at the map. It's a region made up of 8 countries: Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka and the Maldives. 8 countries make up South Asia. Among them, India is a giant. Our population is 1.4 billion. The rest of South Asia put together is under 500 million. Same with the economy. India's GDP is around $3.3 trillion. The rest of South Asia, around 1 trillion. The point of this comparison is quite simple: to tell you that India looms large over this region, over these countries. Now we come to the geopolitics, and we'll keep Pakistan and Afghanistan out of it for obvious reasons. Also Bangladesh, because Dhaka remains one of India's closest partners in the region. It's a relationship forged in the battlefield, so India-Bangladesh ties are an exception. Let's focus on the rest, because they have all been traditional allies of India, whether it's for trade or investments or disaster relief or tourism and cultural exchange. New Delhi is fiercely protective of this region. It's been like India's strategic backyard. But now it's changing. In 2020, Nepal triggered a spat with India. Their new map showed Indian territories as part of Nepal. In Sri Lanka, China is everywhere. From roads to bridges to ports to airports, Colombo also welcomed Chinese spy vessels in the last few years. These were unprecedented moves. In Bhutan, you had border talks. Their then foreign minister visited China last year. He agreed to settle the Bhutan-China border soon. Just one problem though, India was not in that room. New Delhi has traditionally advised Bhutan on such matters, but this time that did not happen. And finally, you have the Maldives, the extreme end of the trend. We've discussed their plan in detail. It's not just India out, it's also China in. The question is, why is this happening? Well, some people may ask, why not? After all, these are all independent countries. They can choose their own foreign policy. So why should India care? And there is merit in such an argument, because occasionally the big neighbor has become the big brother. Meaning India has pushed too far in some instances. But here's the flip side. New Delhi has plenty of strategic concerns, the biggest being China. Beijing already has a port in Sri Lanka, the Hambantota port. They're developing one in Pakistan, in Gwadar. They're also eyeing one in Bangladesh. Chances are the Maldives will be next. Now, what if Chinese warships are stationed at all these ports? What if Chinese soldiers guard them? It's a serious concern for India. New Delhi could be surrounded by hostile warships. So my point is quite simple. This is not about turning South Asian countries into chess pieces, because that would be unacceptable. This is about securing India's own interests. And to do that, New Delhi needs to be on good terms with these countries. But it's easier said than done, because China has a much bigger checkbook. They will also support any sort of regime, junta, dictator, monarch, it doesn't really matter. China will do business with any of them. India, though, has some principles and some red lines. We've seen that in Afghanistan and Myanmar. So what can New Delhi do given all of this? Well, giving up is not an option. India shares historic ties with all of these countries, so standing by them is important. Like in Sri Lanka in 2022, when crisis struck, India is the one that came to the rescue. Or in Nepal during the earthquake of 2015. Or in the Maldives during the water crisis of 2014. India has and should remain the first responder. It builds a lot of goodwill. It also keeps these countries stable. The last thing you want is some social upheaval in the neighborhood, something that China can further capitalize on. Secondly, it's about damage control. India may have a neighborhood-first policy, others may not. So New Delhi needs to look at the second best thing. If India isn't first, it shouldn't be last. And to be fair, that's what the government is trying to do. When Mohammad Muizu won the election, Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulated him. He also met Muizu in Dubai. Even after this row, New Delhi has been poised. The government has handled things maturely. It is social media that has made it worse. Maybe it's a good idea to de-link the two, because social media does not represent public policy. If it did, the US would be pro-Palestine and not pro-Israel. So the takeaway is quite simple. Keep emotions out of foreign ties. New Delhi has done that perfectly in Ukraine and Gaza. The key is to also do that in the neighborhood.